subject is basically HR and organizations' core business functions. So, what do you mean by that? How HR caters to the needs of other key functions, business functions in the organization, and how HR gets support from other key business functions is what we are going to discuss today. HR is primarily concerned with people, as all of you know. It's acquiring talent, developing talent, and retaining talent. So, HR activities may be split into strategic, operational, and administrative activities. Okay, so what is this strategic activity of HR? So, any decision which you take, any strategic decision which you take in the organization has a human implication, has a human factor implication. Suppose you want to outsource, just I'm giving an example how it has a human factor implication. Suppose you want to outsource a particular job or activity. 1 minute, sorry. Outsource a particular activity or a job in the manufacturing setup. So already there would be certain people working in that particular job, and how it impacts them you have to see. How it's going to impact them. That is what we mean here as human implications or human impact. How it impacts them and what is the workload you are going to assign from them, because you are taking a particular workload from them, and how you are going to assign a particular workload to them. At the same time, if you outsource, what is going to be the agreement, what are the legal hassles, etc., one needs to see. So this is the strategic impact I'm speaking about. HR is a strategic partner because while in the creation of the business strategy itself, HR is called upon to create the business strategy. So HR knows how a particular organization is generating value. HR creates the business strategy. HR is one of the key players in creating the business strategy, and therefore HR knows how the organization is generating value and how each function plays a role in generating that value. So HR is in a best position to act as a cross-functional bridge between departments. So this strategic activity actually paves the way for administrative and operational activities. So here administrative activities means basically your compliance activities and your record keeping. Even though they are administrative in nature, these activities also can be done in a strategic manner by outsourcing activities which are low in value, and by automating and by technology, by using technology. And therefore, you can do the administrative activity in a more strategic manner and focus more on the strategic activities. That is what is expected out of a HR business partner today. Moving on to the operational activity of HR, as I said, there are three activities: strategic activity, administrative activity, operational activity. Moving on to the operational activity of HR, what do you mean by operational activity? Again, you can do it in a strategic manner, all these operational activities. Your operational activities are basically hiring, improving the performance, improving the productivity, creating a progressive discipline, handling grievances, communication, facilitating the line managers, facilitating consulting with the line managers on their department issues. So these are the operational activities. So how do you align the HR strategy with the organizational strategy? How do you do that? You can do that through knowledge management. So you should have a knowledge database. What are the key skill sets available in the organization? What is the talent available in the organization? What are the key skill sets of those talent available in the organization? And how do you map them to your current projects or current requirements or future projects or future requirements? Then targeted talent acquisition and development. I am speaking about alignment of HR strategy with the organization strategy. Each organization would have a different strategy. You will have to align your HR strategy with the organization strategy. So next one is targeted talent acquisition and development. So how do you do that actually? See, there is a job description, and there will be basically for any job there will be a job description, and there are certain competencies. So you should ensure there is no disconnect between the JD and competencies. This is the second important point under alignment of HR strategies and organization strategy. The third one is you should design an incentive system which promotes desired behavior. So for example, whether you will reward for a single small sales or single big sales or many multiple number of small sales. What is the reward system you have? Whether you will reward for reducing the customer call time or whether you will reward for customer satisfaction. Okay, so that is one thing. And moving on to the next one, employee engagement practices. So it is basically engagement here means not taking the employees to excursion or a reach out program. That is commonly misunderstood by many HR pros. Engagement here means having an emotional connect with the organization. The employee should have an emotional connect with the organization. He should have a loyalty towards the organization, a bonding which makes him stick, and so therefore he never moves out of the organization, especially during these times of turbulence and crisis. So this is what we mean by employee engagement. It is nothing but a emotional bonding. So how do you do that? You will have to improve the skill sets of your employees, and you will have to change your leadership style. If your leadership style is more of a directional, you will have to move to a more of a, you will have to empower your employees. You will have to move to a leadership style from a directional to a more of a participative or affiliative or a democratic leadership style. So this is one part. Then you need to develop a service culture within the HR function. See, HR is a service department. One needs to understand that. HR is a service department. HR has many internal customers, so which we are going to discuss shortly. Who are those internal customers and how HR adds value to them is the subject for discussion today. So you develop a internal service culture within your HR team. First, go sit with other functions, other departments, study their objectives, their perspectives, their point of view, their challenges. So know all these things. So if you know all these things, you will know how to help the other functions achieve their goals through your HR activities and processes. By this, you will strengthen the relationship with the other department, and you can also add value to the other department. So establish a service level agreement, SLA. They call it as SLA, service level agreement. What do you mean by that? Service level agreement. For example, the time taken to hire. What is the time taken to hire a particular candidate? What is the time taken to rectify the errors in payroll? So establish a service level agreement. Okay. If you have any grievance, have a mechanism, have a time frame, and resolve it. That is what we are saying as a service level agreement. Then moving on. Just a minute. So now, see, the organization's strategy is not driven by a single function. Please understand that the organization's strategy is not driven by a single function. Whether it is generally people say that sales bring business, that is your marketing and sales bring business. Your what to say, manufacturing, they produce the goods, so they are the key value drivers in your value chain. This is the general feeling. It is not that. So it is basically a cross-functional collaboration. One needs to understand that. One needs to understand that thoroughly. So that is why we are discussing about HR and other key business functions. Okay. So how do you do that? See, what are the key functions in an organization? So the key functions are executive management, that is the board of directors, starting from the board of directors, with whom and all HR interacts, I'm saying. Your executive management, that is the board of directors. Then you have your finance function. Then you have your sales and marketing. Then you have your operations function. Then you have your R&D, and finally you have your IT department. So these are the six. Many stakeholders are there. Obviously, you can split them under operations itself. You will have logistics, etc. But we are only speaking about the broad classification of the key stakeholders. So these are the major six key stakeholders. So how HR, what is their role and how HR supports them is what we are going to see briefly. First, let us start with the executive management or the so-called board of directors. The primarily concerned with driving the operational and financial performance of the organization. They are responsible for the performance of the organization. They are responsible for the executive compensation. They are responsible for driving the governance. They are responsible for driving the vision, mission, and values of the company. So how HR interacts with this executive management or board of directors? HR in fact directly interacts with the executive management. How? HR plays a key role, because in developing the strategy itself, HR is there, and creating the business strategy itself, HR is there, and therefore HR is in direct touch with the executive management. And HR also plays a key role in imparting training on ethics and corporate governance to board members. That is the second point. And HR plays a key role in fixing executive compensation to the board of directors on par with the market. So this is how HR interacts with the executive management. Normally, who and all are there in the executive management? What is the title? Managing Director, President, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Operating Officer. Some positions are double-hatted. What do you mean by double-hatted? They have additional responsibilities depending upon the strategy of the organization. So Chief Operating Officer may have additional responsibility for IT, and therefore he will be the COO, that is COO, as well as the CIO. Similarly, HR will have additional responsibility for CSR. Just an example I'm quoting. It may or may not be. It depends upon the company. This is how HR caters to the needs of the executive management. Now moving on to the next function, finance and accounting. So finance and accounting both are different functions, which all of us know. Finance is concerned with the utilization of financial resources, operating the business, that is the revenues and the expenses, and as well as it is also concerned with budgets, etc. Whereas accounting is concerned with preparing income statement, profit and loss statement, preparing analytical statements to finance, which aids them in strategic decision making. So that is the role of finance. So finance is also involved in global expansion. If a company wants to expand globally, finance has got a role to play. Technological investments and also strategic alliances. So the one important activity of finance is managing treasury, that is investments and borrowings. Okay, and to support compliance activities, obviously there is the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, and GACCP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles in US. So how HR serves this particular stakeholder inside the organization? HR depends on finance for everything, for its budgets, for its capital expenditure budget, for its operational budget. HR also supports in conducting internal and external audits. HR helps in hiring the right finance candidate. because it is very important. You need to hire a person who is very high in integrity as far as the finance function is concerned, because the chances for manipulation or fraud are huge in this particular function. So HR has got a role to play in hiring. Now moving on to the next department. So marketing and sales may be two different functions depending upon the organization. In certain organization, one is a subset of another. Marketing, if you see, they are generally concerned with placing the product and positioning the product in the market. That is the role of the marketing. So they have high level of customer awareness, market intelligence, competitive threats. So they know more than the other functions about the business. Whereas if you take the sales, there will be business to business sales. It depends upon the company. It will be business to consumer sales, whether B2B or B2C. It depends upon the strategy of the company. Some companies may sell directly with their own sales representatives. Some company will sell with their partners through a distributor to the wholesaler to the retailer. So depending upon the strategy of the company, HR has got a role in playing the HR role, that is in acquiring the talent and designing compensation system. So if it is your own sales staff, how you will design the compensation system. If it is your indirect sales staff, how you will design your compensation system. So sales look forward to HR for designing incentive systems, attractive incentive systems. Thereby they can sell more and bring revenue to the company. They also look forward to HR for cutting edge technology skills, for acquiring cutting edge technology skills. They also look forward to HR in imparting knowledge and skills training. And sales is a function which builds the brand of the company. Marketing and sales is a function which builds the brand identity of the company. Okay, so HR can use this brand identity to through for hiring. Whatever the brand identity is developed by marketing, HR can leverage this brand identity. So that is how HR and marketing work together. So moving on to the next function, research and development. So R&D is another function which generates revenue to the organization. So let's keep that in mind. Research and development is a function which generates revenue to the company. So it's a logical investment if it brings a revenue. So as far as the R&D is concerned, so R&D takes place in the private sector, R&D takes place in the public sector. So in the private sector, in the last decade, if you have seen the sectors where R&D spending or innovation was huge, was obviously electronics, your internet systems, healthcare, etc. Whereas in public sector, we only focus on theoretical research, not applied research. So your national research institutes in association with universities do research, especially in the area of health. They do the research. So according to a global survey 2018 done by PricewaterhouseCoopers, there were three metrics were taken. One was earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and tax, EBITDA, what we called in finance. Second one was market capitalization. Third one was revenue. On these three metrics, if you see, in the last decade, the companies which innovated performed better than the companies which spent more on R&D. So what I'm trying to say here is, it's not enough that you spend on R&D. Simply you have a budget of 1,000 crores of R&D, it doesn't mean that you will get revenue. The company has to engage in impactful innovation. Example, the Tesla electric car. So how HR collaborates with R&D? So HR has to retain the talent in the R&D. HR has to reduce the boredom. HR has to reduce the bureaucracy in the job descriptions, because in R&D you will have to develop a culture of diversity and inclusion and diversity. and therefore you will have to reduce the bureaucracy. So in that way, HR can contribute to the R&D function. HR should also design processes which support agile decision making in R&D. And HR should also design career paths for R&D people who are in the non-managerial cadre. So you will have people who are highly technical in R&D, who do not have managerial skills, who cannot move up the ladder, and therefore you have to design a career path for them. Therefore, you are able to retain them. That is a key role of HR collaborating in with R&D. Okay, moving on to operations. So manufacturing, operations or production, whatever name you call, it varies by industry. What is the key role of operations? The key role of operations is to develop, produce, and deliver the products, right? Far range spectrum of products ranging from tangible products like automobiles, intangible products like IT, or services like your HR consultancy. It may be any products or services. That is the role of operations. So operations is concerned with the optimum utilization of resources. Okay. Operations is concerned with the optimum utilization of resources. It is also concerned with environment, quality, health, and safety. So it wants the right person with the right skill at the right time. So that is the requirement of the operations. So how HR supports? So HR supports by providing the right, by delivering the right talent. HR supports the operation function. How does HR perform this function? They have the historical trend, historical data, and therefore they know the gaps in the skills, and therefore they are able to bridge the skill gap and provide the right talent to the operations. And they also support operations in productivity, disciplining, signing wage settlements, etc. So the main purpose of operations is compliance. That is what I would say, compliance. If any accident happens or if any safety incident happens, they are supposed to inform to the concerned authority and document it. So HR should educate the operation members in compliance activities. So moving on to the final department, key function, key business function, information technology. So what is the role of information technology? The role of information technology is to store, access, and exchange and analyze data, both voice and data communication. That is the role of IT. So therefore, we are able to make decision making in real time. So over a period of time, the IT requirement of a company grows. When it is a startup, you would have had a proprietary software, a software which is built indigenously. As you grow, different departments will require different softwares. There will be a different vendors providing this software, and it is very difficult to achieve integration. Very difficult to achieve integration. There are different ERP modules like your HR, FICO module, project module, business intelligence module. Many modules are there. So data are there throughout the organization at different places, but how do you integrate them for real-time decision making is the challenge with security and reliability, because nobody should tamper your data whether internally or externally. Right, so that is a key function of IT. So how IT supports HR, how HR supports IT. IT supports HR by designing a efficient human resource information system, and HR supports IT by supplying a quality pipeline of candidates, and it also develops IT, it also supports IT to develop policies that prevent risk mitigation, and it communicates the policies throughout the organization. In that way, HR and IT collaborate together. So this is how HR got a key role to play in collaboration with all functions and delivers value to each function and thereby achieving the vision, mission, and goal of the organization. With this, I will conclude my talk on this particular subject.